The inevitable dawn was the most advanced ship in the Galactic Empire's fleet. It was bigger than any human ship ever built. Its halls could fit 5,000 crew members from 100 different species. Right now, it felt empty with just 5 humans walking through its massive corridors. Susan Hayes led her small team past curious alien eyes. Some aliens had too many eyes, some had none at all. Some whispered to each other in languages that sounded like music or like rocks falling. All of them stared at the humans. "They're looking at us like we're already dead," William Porter whispered. He was the tactical specialist, an expert in fighting battles in space. "Let them look," Susan said. "We'll change their minds soon enough." A tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms walked up to them. He wore a uniform with many badges and symbols. "I am Commander Thaz," he said. His voice sounded like it came through a metal tube. "I will take you to your quarters." As they walked, Commander Thaz spoke to his assistant in his own language. He didn't know that Grace Miller, the communications expert, could understand him. She had studied alien languages for years. "They're so fragile," Thaz said to his assistant. "Their bones break under minimal pressure. Their lifespans are laughably brief. Why would they accept this mission?" Grace didn't translate this for the others. She just made a note in her mind that the aliens underestimated them. That could be useful later. Their rooms were comfortable but strange. The beds were too soft, the air was too humid, and the lights were too bright. But they were soldiers. They had slept in worse places. "Get settled in," Susan told her team. "Meeting in 1 hour." When they gathered again, they went to the ship's main briefing room. It was filled with alien officers who looked at the humans with doubt in their eyes, tentacles or whatever they used to see. Admiral Zorak stood at the front. He didn't try to hide his feelings. "The humans will now be informed of our mission plan," he announced to the room. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a map of the galaxy with a dark spot spreading like an ink stain. "This is the Void Swarm," Admiral Zorax explained. "It is a collective of self-replicating nanomachines that consume matter and energy to make more of themselves. We believe they were originally created as a weapon by an ancient race that destroyed itself." Susan studied the map carefully. "How fast is it moving?" "It has consumed 3 star systems in the past year. It is accelerating. At its current rate, it will reach major Empire worlds in 22 months. The hologram changed to show a path through space. It curved around several dangerous areas. This is our course," Admiral Zorax continued. "We will approach from the galactic north, avoiding the Crimson Nebula. The total mission time will be 7 months." Susan looked at the map for a long moment. Then she walked up to it and pointed to a different path, a straight line that went directly through the Crimson Nebula. "We'll go this way instead," she said. Admiral Zorax made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Impossible. The Crimson Nebula is filled with radiation and gravity anomalies. No ship can navigate it safely." Susan looked back at her team. Samantha Collins, the engineer, nodded slightly. She had already been studying the ship's specifications. "This ship can," Susan said confidently. "And it will cut our travel time to 3 months instead of 7. The alien officers began talking all at once. Some sounded angry, others confused. Admiral Zorax had to shout for quiet. "General Hayes," he said, his voice cold. "You are here because we needed a military commander willing to undertake a suicide mission. You are not here to change our carefully made plans." Susan didn't back down. "You asked for humans because you wanted something different. Well, this is what different looks like. We don't take the safe route when there's a faster way. The Crimson Nebula has destroyed hundreds of ships over the centuries. Those weren't this ship and they didn't have us," Susan replied. "Where I'm from, we call this a shortcut." Later, in the privacy of their quarters, Susan's team gathered to talk. "The aliens think we're crazy," William said. He wasn't wrong. Daniel Garcia, the medical officer, shook his head. "They don't understand humans at all. They see our physical weaknesses but miss everything else." "That's our advantage," Susan said. "They don't expect much from us. That means we can surprise them." Samantha Collins spread out some notes she had taken on the ship's systems. She was small and quiet, but her mind was always working. "I've been studying the ship's engines. They're incredible. I think I can modify them to handle the radiation in the nebula." "Will the aliens let you?" Grace asked. Susan smiled. "They will when I tell them the alternative is for us to take control of the ship." "You'd mutiny?" William asked, surprised. "No, I'd take command of a mission I was put in charge of," Susan corrected. "But it won't come to that. The aliens are logical. They'll see that my way is faster." The next day, Susan met with Admiral Zorax and Commander Thaz. She brought Samantha with her to explain the technical details. "Engineer Collins has found a way to shield the ship from the nebula's radiation," Susan explained. "It will be safer than you think." Admiral Zorax didn't look convinced. "And the gravity anomalies? They can tear a ship apart. We can detect them with the ship's sensors," Samantha said. "With some adjustments to your navigation systems, we can plot a safe course through them." "It's never been done before," Commander Thaz protested. "Humans are good at doing things that have never been done before," Susan said. "It's kind of our specialty." In the end, the aliens agreed, not because they were convinced, but because they saw the determination in Susan's eyes. They realized that this human would find a way to do what she wanted with or without their approval. As they prepared to change course, Susan stood on the bridge of the inevitable dawn. Around her, alien crew members worked at stations with technology far more advanced than anything on Earth. But technology wasn't everything. Will, determination, creativity, these things mattered too. And humans had them in abundance. "Course laid in for the Crimson Nebula," announced the navigation officer, a being with 6 eyes and skin like tree bark. "Proceed," Susan ordered. The great ship turned in space and accelerated toward the glowing red cloud that stretched across the stars. On Earth, the Crimson Nebula was just a pretty picture taken by telescopes. Up close, it was a swirling mass of deadly radiation and unpredictable gravity fields. It was beautiful and terrifying. "Are you sure about this?" Commander Thaz asked quietly, standing beside Susan. "No," Susan admitted. "But I'm sure we have to try. 4 months could make the difference between saving worlds and losing them." The ship entered the outer edges of the nebula. Red light filled the viewports. Warning signals flashed on several screens as radiation levels rose. "Activating Collins's shield modifications," called out an alien technician. Samantha watched the readings nervously. This was her plan, her calculations. If she was wrong, everyone on the ship could die, but the shields held. The radiation was kept at bay. "First gravity anomaly detected," reported the navigation officer. "Adjusting course." The ship shuddered, slightly as it changed direction, avoiding an invisible area where gravity was strong enough to crush the hull. For 3 tense days, they navigated through the nebula. The aliens worked alongside the humans, gaining respect for them with each obstacle overcome. Susan stayed on the bridge the entire time, catching sleep and short naps when things were calm. On the 4th day, they emerged from the other side of the nebula. The stars looked normal again. The red glow was behind them. "Damage report," Susan requested. "Minor damage to outer hull plating." "All systems functional," reported an alien officer, surprise evident in his voice. "Plot a course for the void swarm," Susan ordered. "Best speed." As she looked out at the stars, Susan felt the weight of what they were doing. They had passed the first test, but the real challenge was still ahead. Somewhere out there, the void swarm was waiting, and it was hungry. Commander Thaz approached her as the shift ended. "I must admit, General Hayes, I did not believe you could do it." "That's the secret about humans," Susan said with a tired smile. "We often do things people don't believe we can do." In her quarters that night, Susan looked at a picture of her niece Karen. The girl was smiling, unaware that her aunt was billions of miles away, flying toward the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. "We're coming for you, Void Swarm," Susan whispered, to the darkness of space. "And we're bringing a surprise." The room was silent except for the soft hum of the holographic displays. 12 beings from different worlds sat around a large circular table. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few glowed with inner light. They were the Galactic Council, of elders, the most powerful group in the known universe. High Chancellor Kelmar stood up, his blue skin wrinkled as he frowned at the images floating above the table. The pictures showed a dark cloud moving through space, eating everything in its path. "The Void Swarm has destroyed 3 more star systems," Kelmar said. His voice was deep and sad. "Our scientists say it will reach the heart of our empire in less than 2 years. If we don't stop it, everything we built over 10,000 years will be gone." Admiral Zorax, a tall being with 4 arms and red eyes, shook his head. "Our biggest warships tried to fight it. They failed. The Void Swarm eats energy weapons and grows stronger from them." The room grew even quieter. The Galactic Empire included 137 different species and controlled over 50,000 planets. They had the best technology, the smartest minds, and the strongest warriors in the galaxy. But the Void Swarm was like nothing they had ever seen before. "There is one option left," said Science Minister Ekra. She was small and looked fragile, but her mind was sharp. "Our research team has created a new weapon. We call it the Entropy Bomb. It can destroy the Void Swarm by breaking down its basic structure." "That sounds promising," said Councillor Drev, who represented the outer planets. Ekra shook her head. "There's a problem. The bomb must be placed directly in the center of the Void Swarm, in what we call its neural nexus, the place where it thinks." "Admiral," Zorax laughed, but there was no joy in it. "That's not possible. No ship can fly through the swarm. It would be eaten before it got halfway there." "And even if a ship could reach the center," added Security Director Nall, "someone would need to activate the bomb manually. The swarm blocks all remote signals." High Chancellor Kelmar looked at each council member. "We need someone to lead a mission that will almost certainly end in death. We need a military commander who understands sacrifice." The council members looked at their hands or the ceiling. No one wanted to volunteer their people for what was clearly a suicide mission. After a long moment, a voice spoke from the back of the room. "Perhaps we should ask the humans." Everyone turned to look at Diplomat Vreen. He was the representative for the newest species in the Empire. Humans had only been discovered 50 years ago, and they had only figured out how to travel between stars in the last century. They were babies compared to the rest of the Empire. "The humans?" Admiral Zorax said with disgust. "They're primitive. Their bodies break easily. Their lives are short, even without our help. Why would we ask them? Because they're different," Vreen said simply. "I've studied them. They think in ways we don't. They take risks that seem crazy to us." High Chancellor Kelmar considered this. The humans were indeed strange. While most species in the galaxy had evolved to avoid danger and minimize risk, humans seemed to run toward it. They climbed mountains because they were there. They jumped out of flying vehicles for fun. They explored dangerous places just to see what was there. "It's worth trying," Kelmar decided. "If they say no, we've lost nothing." 3 days later, General Susan Hayes stood in a plane room at the United Earth Defense Force headquarters. In front of her was a hologram of High Chancellor Kelmar and 3 other alien council members. Susan was tall for a human woman, with short gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She had been a soldier for 30 years and had seen things that most people couldn't imagine. But even she was surprised by what the aliens were asking. "Let me make sure I understand," she said after they finished explaining. "You want me to fly into the middle of a living cloud of machines that eats spaceships, deliver a bomb to its brain, and set it off manually?" "That is correct," said High Chancellor Kelmar. "The mission has a very low chance of success. We estimate the survival probability at 0.0001%. And if I don't do this, the Void Swarm will eventually reach Earth? Yes, it will consume everything in its path." Susan was quiet for a moment. She thought about her home, about the green forests and blue oceans. She thought about her niece who was just starting college, and her old dog who waited for her to come home every night. The aliens expected her to take time to consider their offer, maybe days or weeks. They thought she would need to talk to her, leaders make plans or even refuse. Instead, Susan just nodded. "When do I start?" The aliens looked at each other in surprise. High Chancellor Kelmar blinked his large eyes several times. You accept? Just like that? Someone has to do it, Susan said simply. Might as well be me. Later that day, Susan sat in her office looking out the window at the busy streets below. People walked to work, met friends for lunch, and lived their lives without knowing how close they were to extinction. Her assistant, Alan, knocked on the door. The transport ship will be here tomorrow morning, he said. They're giving us their best battle cruiser, the inevitable Dawn. You'll need to pick your team. Susan nodded. I want William Porter for tactics, Samantha Collins for engineering, Daniel Garcia for medical, and Grace Miller for communications. Alan wrote down the names. You know this is probably a one-way trip, right? I know. Then why did you say yes so quickly? Susan smiled a little. Because someone needs to do it. And because they think it's impossible. And you don't? I think it's nearly impossible. But nearly impossible isn't the same as impossible. That night, Susan called her niece Karen and talked about normal things. She didn't mention the mission or the danger. When Karen asked when she'd visit next, Susan just said, I hope soon, and changed the subject. After the call, she sat on her porch with her old dog Rex and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there was the void swarm moving closer every day, and somewhere out there was the answer to stopping it. The next morning, Susan put on her uniform, packed a small bag, and gave Rex one last pat on the head before her neighbor came to pick him up. Then she walked out to the landing pad where a strange ship waited. It was silver and shaped like a teardrop, much more elegant than human ships. 4 other humans waited nearby, her chosen team. They all stood straight when they saw her. General Hayes, William Porter said with a salute. He was a young man with a serious face. Are we really doing this? Susan looked at each of them. They had all said yes without knowing the full details. That was trust. That was being human. We're really doing this, she confirmed. The Galactic Empire thinks this mission is impossible. Our job is to prove them wrong. Together, they walked toward the alien ship and the impossible mission that waited for them among the stars. The inevitable Dawn limped through space like a wounded animal. Its once smooth hull was now scarred with burn marks and dents. Inside, the corridors were dimly lit to save power. Emergency repairs had been made with whatever materials were available. It was no longer the pride of the Galactic Fleet, but it was still moving forward. Susan walked through the ship, checking on the crew. Many were injured. Some stations were staffed by people doing jobs they weren't trained for because the original crew members were dead or too hurt to work. Morale was low, but determination was high. They had come too far to give up now. 3 alien crew members had left at the last resupply point, convinced that the humans were leading them to certain death. Susan didn't blame them. The odds of success were getting smaller every day. In the engine room, Samantha Collins worked on the modified entropy bomb. Her hands were steady despite her exhaustion. She had been working almost nonstop for days. How's it coming? Susan asked. Samantha looked up, her eyes red from lack of sleep. I think it's ready. I've reconfigured the energy matrix to emit a reprogramming signal instead of just causing destruction. Susan examined the device. It looked the same as before, a sphere about the size of a basketball, covered in alien symbols and technology. But inside it was very different. Will it work? Susan asked. In theory, yes, Samantha said. But we won't know for sure until we try it, and we only get one chance. Susan nodded. That was true of the whole mission. One chance to save the galaxy. One chance to prove that humans could do the impossible. Get some rest, she told Samantha. You'll need it for what's coming. In the tactical room, William Porter was studying maps of the area around the dead star where the neural nexus was hidden. He looked up when Susan entered. It's not good, he said without preamble. The area around the nexus is swarming with void ships, and the star itself is surrounded by a field of debris that will be hard to navigate. Can we fight our way through? Susan asked. William shook his head. Not with our current damage. We might make it to the edge of the debris field, but not through it. Susan considered this. What about a smaller ship? The shuttle, perhaps? Maybe. It would be faster and more maneuverable, but it would have almost no defenses. It doesn't need defenses if it's fast enough, Susan said. It just needs to reach the Nexus. William looked at her for a long moment. You're planning to pilot it yourself, aren't you? Susan didn't answer directly. Draw up the plans. We'll discuss it with the others later. In the mess hall, Susan found Daniel and Grace sharing a quiet meal. They both looked tired but managed smiles when they saw her. How are our alien friends doing? Susan asked Daniel. They're tough, Daniel said. Different biology means different strengths. Some injuries that would kill a human, they recover from easily. Other things that we'd consider minor are serious for them. And morale? Grace answered that one. Mixed. Some of them think we're all going to die. Others are starting to believe we might actually succeed. They've never seen anyone get this close to the neural nexus before. Susan sat down with them. I need to tell you both something. The final approach to the nexus will have to be made in the shuttle. The main ship can't make it through the debris field. Who's going in the shuttle? Daniel asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer. Me, Susan said simply. Samantha's modified the bomb. It's ready. I need to deliver it to the nexus. Grace and Daniel exchanged looks. That's a one-way trip, Grace said quietly. Maybe not, Susan replied. If Samantha's modifications work, the shuttle might survive. And if they don't, well, someone needs to make sure the original bomb is triggered. Let one of us go, Daniel suggested. You're needed to command the ship. Susan shook her head. This is why they asked for a general, not a scientist. Sometimes leadership means doing the thing no one else wants to do. Later that day, Susan called a meeting with Commander Thaz and the other alien officers. She explained her plan to use the shuttle. This is madness, said one of the officers. No one can fly through that debris field. I can, Susan said confidently. Human pilots have good reflexes. Even if you reach the nexus, how will you return? Commander Thaz asked. The shuttle has enough fuel for a return trip, Susan said. This was technically true, though she didn't mention the low probability of actually making it back. And the bomb? Thaz asked. Has Engineer Collins finished her work on it? Yes, Susan said. It's ready. She didn't mention the modifications. The aliens still thought the plan was simply to destroy the Void Swarm, not reprogram it. That night, Susan recorded a message for her niece Karen. She didn't know if it would ever be delivered, but it felt important to say goodbye just in case. Hey, Karen, she began. If you're watching this, then either something went very right or very wrong. Either way, I want you to know that everything I did was to protect you and everyone else on Earth. And I want you to remember what I always told you. Impossible just means no one's done it yet. The next day, they reached the edge of the debris field. The dead star loomed ahead, a dark sphere against the backdrop of space. Around it swirled pieces of planets and ships that had been partially consumed by. 6 weeks passed as the inevitable dawn traveled through space. The humans and aliens worked together, learning from each other. The aliens discovered that humans were surprisingly tough, despite their soft bodies. The humans learned that many alien species had their own kinds of strength. Susan spent her free time studying everything they knew about the Void Swarm. It wasn't much. The swarm ate planets, asteroids, and ships. It broke them down to their basic parts and used them to make more of itself. It seemed to have a kind of intelligence, but no one had ever communicated with it. The ship entered the Pelter system, a place that had once been home to a thriving civilization. Now it was empty. The planets were still there, but they were bare. Wrong. All life, all buildings, all resources had been eaten by the Void Swarm. Sensors are detecting something ahead, reported an alien officer on the bridge. Small objects moving fast. Susan leaned forward in her command chair. Show me. The screen displayed several small dark shapes moving among the outer planets of the system. They looked like tiny black clouds. Void Swarm scouts, Commander Thaz said. His forehands gripped the railing tightly. They search for new targets and report back to the main swarm. Have they seen us? Susan asked. Not yet. Our stealth systems are working. Standard protocol is to hide until they pass by. Susan nodded, but had a different idea forming in her mind. She called William Porter to the bridge. When William arrived, she showed him the scout ships. "What do you think?" William studied them carefully. "They're small, probably not as dangerous as the main swarm, but if they see us and report back, we lose the element of surprise. Can we destroy them before they report?" William thought for a moment. "Maybe. The ship's weapons are powerful, but we'd have to hit all of them at once." Susan turned to Commander Thawes. "Prepare weapons. Target all scout ships." The alien commander stared at her. "That is not protocol. We should hide, and I'm not interested in protocol," Susan interrupted. "I'm interested in winning. If these scouts report back, the main swarm will be waiting for us. But if we fire and miss even one, it will definitely report back, Commander," Thawes argued. "Then we won't miss," Susan said firmly. The weapons officer, a small green alien with 3 eyes, spoke up. "The human is right. We have the advantage now. We should use it." Commander Thawes hesitated, then nodded. "Prepare weapons. Target all scout vessels." William worked with the weapons officer to create a firing plan. They would use different weapons for each target: energy beams, missiles, and gravity pulses. The scouts might be able to adapt to one type of attack, but not several at once. "Targeting solution acquired," William reported. "Ready to fire on your command." Susan took a deep breath. This was their first real action against the Void Swarm. If they failed, the mission might be over before it really began. "Fire everything," she ordered calmly. The inevitable dawn lit up as weapons fired in all directions. Energy beams cut through space. Missiles streaked toward their targets. Gravity pulses distorted the space around several scouts. On the screen, they watched as the black scout ships tried to evade. But William's plan worked perfectly. Each scout was hit by a different kind of attack. They broke apart into tiny pieces that drifted away in space. "All targets destroyed," William reported, unable to keep the pride from his voice. The bridge. Crew cheered. It was a small victory, but an important one. They had faced the Void Swarm and won. But Susan didn't cheer. She knew this was just the beginning. "Scan for any transmissions. Did they get a message out?" The communications officer checked his instruments. "No signals detected. I believe we got them all before they could report." Susan nodded, relieved. "Good work, everyone. Now let's keep moving before more scouts show up." Later, in her quarters, Susan received a visit from Samantha Collins. The engineer looked tired but excited. "I've been studying the entropy bomb," Samantha said, closing the door behind her. "The aliens gave me access to the technical specifications." "What did you find?" Susan asked. "It's brilliant but simple. It creates a field that breaks the bonds between atoms. It should destroy the Void Swarm's nanomachines completely. But we have to deliver it to the center of the swarm," Susan reminded her. "Yes, that's still the hard part," Samantha agreed. "But I've been thinking, what if we could modify the bomb?" Susan raised an eyebrow. "Modify it how?" "The Void Swarm is made of nanomachines, tiny robots that work together. They must communicate somehow. If we could tap into that communication, we might be able to do more than just destroy them." "Like what?" Samantha's eyes were bright with excitement. "We might be able to reprogram them, turn them from destroyers into something helpful." Susan stared at her. "Is that possible?" "I think so. I've been working on a theory. The entropy bomb generates a specific energy pattern. If we adjust that pattern, we might be able to send new instructions to the swarm instead of just destroying it." It was a crazy idea. The kind of idea that no one in the Galactic Empire would ever think of. But that's why humans were on this mission, to think differently. "Do it," Susan said. "But keep it quiet for now. The aliens might not approve." "What about the rest of our team?" Samantha asked. "Tell them. We work together. But no one else needs to know yet." That night, Susan gathered her human crew in her quarters. She explained Samantha's plan to modify the entropy bomb. "The Empire says this is a suicide mission," Susan explained. They expect us to deliver the bomb and die in the process, but I didn't sign up to die. I signed up to win. Daniel Garcia, the medical officer, nodded slowly. So instead of just blowing up the swarm, we try to change it? Exactly, Samantha said. If it works, we could turn the most dangerous thing in the galaxy into something beneficial. And if it doesn't work? Grace Miller asked. Then we use the full bomb as originally planned, Susan said. We still complete the mission. William Porter looked concerned. The aliens won't like us changing their plan. That's why we're not telling them yet, Susan replied. It's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. The next day, they encountered more Void Swarm scouts. This time, there were many more of them. The inevitable Dawn's weapons fired again and again, destroying the small black ships before they could report back. But the fight didn't go unnoticed. An alien officer came to Susan's quarters that evening. The aliens are talking about you, he said. His name was Creel, and he worked in communications with Grace. They think you're insane. Susan smiled. Good. Because what we're planning to do next is even crazier. As they traveled deeper into what had once been the Peltar civilization, they saw more signs of the Void Swarm's destruction. Planets stripped down to their cores, asteroid fields that used to be moons, the empty hulls of ships that had tried to flee. Commander Thaz joined Susan on the observation deck as she looked out at the devastation. No one has ever gone this far into Void territory and survived, he said. There's a first time for everything, Susan replied. You humans are strange, Thaz said. You know the danger, yet you face it anyway. Why? Susan thought about Earth, about her niece Karen, about all the people who would die if the Void Swarm wasn't stopped. Because someone has to, she said simply. And because we believe we can win, even when the odds say we can't. Thaz was quiet for a moment. I'm beginning to understand why the Council chose humans for this mission. In the ship's laboratory, Samantha worked day and night on modifying the entropy bomb. She had help from a few alien scientists who were curious about her ideas. She didn't tell them everything, but she used their knowledge to improve her work. As they got closer to the heart of Void territory, the attacks became more frequent. The ship took damage. Repairs were made. The crew grew more tired but also more determined. One day, after a particularly difficult battle, Susan found Daniel in the medical bay treating injured crew members. How are you holding up? She asked. Daniel finished bandaging an alien's injured limb before answering. We're managing. The aliens are impressed by how quickly humans heal. And how are you really? Susan pressed. Daniel sighed. Scared, like everyone else. But also, I don't know. Hopeful, we've made it this far when no one thought we could. An alien officer was lying on a nearby bed. He had been hurt protecting a human crew member during the last attack. He looked at Susan with large yellow eyes. I don't understand, he said. His voice was weak. Your species experiences fear more intensely than any other in the Empire. Our scans show your stress hormones are off the charts, yet you continue. Daniel shrugged as he treated a plasma burn on his own arm. That's the thing about humans. We're not fearless, we're just stubborn, and we really hate being told something's impossible. Susan smiled at that. It was true. Humans had a long history of doing things that seemed impossible. Flying, going to space, curing diseases that once killed millions. They failed often, but they kept trying until they succeeded. Back on the bridge, Grace Miller reported a new development. We're picking up a large concentration of void activity ahead. I think we're getting close to the neural nexus. Susan studied the readings. The neural nexus, the brain of the void swarm, was their target. It was hidden inside a dead star, a place where nothing should be able to survive. How long until we reach it? She asked. At our current speed, about 3 days, Grace answered. 3 galactic weeks passed as the inevitable dawn made its way back through space. The ship was still damaged, moving slower than it had on the journey out. But no one complained about the speed. They were alive, which was more than anyone had expected. Susan spent most of her time in her quarters, resting and recovering. The mission had taken a toll on her body. Daniel checked on her regularly, concerned about the effects of her exposure to the neural nexus. "Your cellular structure is showing some unusual patterns," he told her after one examination. "Nothing dangerous, but definitely different." Susan had noticed it herself. She felt different. Sometimes she could sense things before they happened. Sometimes she knew what people were going to say before they said it. And sometimes, when she was very still, she could feel a connection to something vast and distant, the transformed void swarm. She didn't tell anyone about these changes, not even her team. She wasn't sure what they meant yet. On the 23rd day of their return journey, the inevitable Dawn received a transmission from the Galactic Council. "They're preparing funeral ceremonies for us," Commander Thaz said with what might have been a laugh. "They didn't expect us to survive." "Let's surprise them," Susan suggested. "Indeed. I've sent word that we're alive and returning. I also told them about the transformation of the void swarm. They did not believe me." Susan wasn't surprised. The idea that the most destructive force in the galaxy could be changed into something beneficial was hard to accept. She was still coming to terms with it herself. "They'll see for themselves soon enough," she said. A week later, the inevitable Dawn's engines failed completely. They had been damaged during the mission and finally gave out. The ship sent out an emergency beacon, hoping that an Imperial vessel would pick up the signal. "How long will the life support systems last?" Susan asked Samantha. 3 weeks, maybe 4 if we conserve power," Samantha replied. "But it'll get cold and dark before the air runs out." Susan nodded. "Then we conserve power, and we wait." The Kamini crew settled in for a long wait. They rationed food and water. They shut down all non-essential systems. They gathered in the central areas of the ship to share body heat as the temperature slowly dropped. During this time, Susan felt the connection to the void swarm growing stronger. In her dreams, she saw what it was doing: rebuilding worlds, restoring ecosystems, creating rather than destroying. And sometimes she thought it could sense her too. 18 days after the engines failed, with the ship cold and dark and hope beginning to fade, sensors detected Imperial vessels approaching. The rescue had arrived. The Empire had sent 3 ships to retrieve the crew of the inevitable Dawn. The captains of these ships were shocked to find anyone alive. They had come expecting to recover bodies, not survivors. "The Council will want to debrief you immediately," the lead captain told Susan as they boarded his ship. "They have many questions about the void swarm." "I have some questions for them, too," Susan replied. When they reached Imperial space, news of their success had spread throughout the Empire. The humans who had taken on the most dangerous job in the galaxy, and not only survived but succeeded, were celebrities now. The Galactic Council convened a special session to hear their report. The Grand Chamber was filled beyond capacity. Representatives from all 137 species in the Empire wanted to hear the story firsthand. Susan stood before the council, with her team behind her. She told them everything: the journey through the Crimson Nebula, the battles with the Void Scouts, and finally the reprogramming of the neural nexus. "You were instructed to destroy the Void Swarm," High Chancellor Kelmar said when she finished. "Not to change it." "With respect, Chancellor, we were instructed to save the galaxy," Susan corrected. "We found a better way to do that than simple destruction." Science Minister Ekra leaned forward. "This reprogramming, Engineer Collins' work, you say? It should not have been possible. The Void Swarm was beyond our understanding." "Not beyond human understanding, apparently," Admiral Zorak said. There was new respect in his voice when he looked at the humans. "The question now," Counselor Drev said, "is what happens to the Void Swarm, or whatever it has become." Susan stepped forward. This was the moment she had been preparing for. "I can answer that," she said. "The Void Swarm is no longer a swarm. It's more like a guardian now. It's rebuilding the worlds it destroyed. And it wants to help." "How do you know this?" Chancellor Kelmar asked, suspicious. Susan hesitated, then decided on the truth. Because I'm connected to it. Since I placed the bomb on the neural nexus, there's been a link between me and the collective. The council chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Susan waited for them to quiet down. The nanomachines recognize me, she continued. A small part of them entered my body when the reprogramming happened. They don't control me, and I don't control them. But we can communicate. This is unprecedented, Science Minister Ekra breathed. A symbiotic relationship with the void, with the Guardian as you call it. What does it want? Admiral Zorax demanded. To repair the damage it caused, Susan said simply, and to protect the galaxy from threats like what it used to be. The Council debated for days about what to do. Some wanted to try to destroy the former Void Swarm, still fearful of its power. Others wanted to study it and perhaps control it. But in the end, they agreed to Susan's proposal. Let the Guardian continue its work of restoration with monitoring but no interference. In the months that followed, Susan's connection to the Guardian grew stronger. She could see through its sensors across vast distances. She could direct small parts of it to help with specific tasks. And sometimes, she could feel its vast consciousness like a background hum in her mind. Curious, regretful for past destruction, and determined to build rather than break. The Empire changed too. Humanity was elevated to the High Council, their perspective now recognized as invaluable. The Haze Protocol became standard training for the Empire's crisis response teams. Look for unconventional solutions. Don't assume destruction is the only answer to a threat. And never underestimate the power of reprogramming rather than removing. Susan herself declined all offers of political power. She had no interest in becoming a diplomat or administrator. Instead, she proposed something new, a multi-species, rapid response force that would combine the best qualities of all beings in the Empire. The Galactic Guardian Corps, she called it. A force that doesn't just destroy threats, but transforms them when possible. The Council approved her proposal. Ships were assigned, crew were recruited, and training began. The first members were the aliens who had served on the Inevitable Dawn, including Commander Thaz. They already understood what Susan was trying to create. A year after the mission, Susan stood on the bridge of a new ship, the Dawn's Promise. It was the flagship of the Guardian Corps, built with technology that combined Imperial science with insights gained from the transformed Void Swarm. William Porter served as her tactical officer. Samantha Collins led the engineering team. Daniel Garcia ran the medical department, and Grace Miller handled communications. Together with their alien colleagues, they formed the core of something new in the galaxy, a force that saw problems as opportunities, not just threats. "Where are we going first, General?" William asked as the ship prepared for its maiden voyage. Susan smiled. On a screen nearby, a map showed unusual energy readings at the edge of the galaxy, something strange and potentially dangerous. "There," she said, pointing to the anomaly. "Something new is happening out there. Let's go see if we can help." As the Dawn's Promise moved away from the Imperial Center, Susan felt the distant presence of the Guardian. It too was curious about the anomaly. Perhaps they would explore it together. On the hull of the ship, a new motto was painted in the languages of all Empire species. "The impossible just takes a little longer." Susan thought about how far they had come. A year ago, she had accepted a suicide mission because someone had to do it. Now she led a force dedicated to finding new solutions to old problems. And she carried within her a connection to what had once been the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Life was strange. But then, humans had always been good at adapting to strangeness. In her quarters, Susan looked at a picture of her niece Karen. The girl was in college now, studying xenobiology, inspired by her aunt's adventures. Susan had visited Earth briefly after the mission, but the pull of space and the work that waited there had brought her back to the stars. "General Hayes to bridge," came Commander Thaz's voice over the intercom. "We're ready to make the jump, to faster than light." "On my way," Susan replied. As she walked through the corridors of her new ship, crew members from a dozen different species nodded respectfully. The woman who had taken the most dangerous job in the galaxy and turned it into the greatest opportunity, was someone they all wanted to follow. Susan reached the bridge and took her seat in the command chair. Ahead, the view screen showed the stars, waiting for them. Billions of points of light, each with worlds to discover and protect. "Course laid in for the anomaly," reported the navigation officer, a young alien with scales that shifted color with her emotions. Right now they were the blue of excitement. "Proceed," Susan ordered.